Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, wherever you may be. My name is Gemma Van Houdren from the ESCAP Statistics Division. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to today's Asia Pacific Statistics Cafe. Today's cafe is the second in a three-part series exploring the use of big data and non-traditional data sources for official statistics. This is a topic of great interest to many of you across Asia and the Pacific and globally, and we're great pleasure to bring to you some insights from across the region and from our partners on producing official statistics using big data. A few weeks ago, we heard about the production of environmental statistics using big data, and today we have the pleasure of hearing about the production of population and social statistics using big data sources. Now, in this area, we're currently doing a bit of research in our region, and in the area of population and social statistics, big data is particularly being used for mobility statistics, migration statistics, so a lot of demographic and migration statistics, but also we're very honoured to have with us today the Executive Director of Flowminder, who has worked with several countries in our region who at these very challenging times, or just at any challenging time, trying to produce estimates from a population census are quite challenging, and Flowminder's done some excellent work to support countries trying to provide population estimates when a population census is challenging for whatever reason. So without further ado, I'm very much looking forward to our three speakers. I'd like to thank Eddie from BPS Indonesia, Rajas from Pulse Lab Jakarta, and Linus Beckerson from Flowminder for being with us today. And I'm going to hand over to our moderator, Tanya Surgson, who's going to step us through. Thank you very much, Tanya.
Thank you so much, Gemma. And yeah, I'm also very excited to see we have quite a lot of participants here today joining already. And we also have some very good speakers lined up. So I'm very excited to see what we get out of this conversation today. So what we will do is we will start off with Eddie's presentation, and then we will, maybe if someone has a few questions specific to that presentation, we'll take those afterwards, and then we will go to Rajas from Pulse Lab Jakarta, and again a few questions there, and then to Linus Benson from Flowminder. If there's a couple of questions for him as well, and then we'll do generic questions afterwards. We also received some very good questions with the registrations. But I will start off with inviting Eddie to do his presentation. Eddie is the head of population and labor mobility statistics in BPS Statistics Indonesia. And he's also the focal specialist for international labor migrant statistics for Indonesia, and a member of the team working on this year's population census in Indonesia, which is obviously very challenging circumstances. He has a doctoral degree in agricultural economics from Bogor Agricultural University, and Indonesia has really been pushing the work on big data forward and are doing a lot of very exciting things. So I'm very, very interested to hear what Eddie has to share with us. Over to you, Eddie. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you, Tanya. A very good afternoon and good morning to all participants of this. Did you see my presentation already? Okay. It is a really great pleasure and honor for me to be able to deliver this presentation. Let me introduce myself again. As Tanya said before, my name is Eddie Setiawan. I work for BPS Statistics Indonesia. On behalf of BPS, I would like to share our experience on how we utilize one type of big data, namely mobile processing data, to produce statistics on population mobility. I will start my presentation. Yeah, I will start my presentation by giving this statement. Data is everywhere. The development of IT is so fast and even faster during the COVID-19 pandemic. Our daily activities from the wake up in the morning till we back to the bed in the evening are always related with internet technology. Those activities using internet on mobile phone automatically will leave the digital footprint connecting directly to the system that we call big data system. What is big data? Maybe all of us have already known about big data. In the previous Start Cafe, we have already discussed about this topic as well. One type of data that comes from big data is mobile positioning data, or MPD. MPD is categorized as a new non-traditional data source. Let's start to explore about MPD. MPD, in a simple way, is defined as a large-scale data set regarding the position or location of a subscriber or mobile phone user. The data itself was processed and stored in the system at the mobile operator database. BPS, as the National Statistical Office, could not have and store the MPD data in our database. By using MPD, each movement pattern of subscriber can be learned time by time. I will give the example of my movement today. Now at Central Jakarta, but this morning I was at my house in the east of Jakarta. So my movement from east to Central Jakarta is recorded in the MNO system and generate the data called as MPD. Then, why is it possible to use MPD as a non-traditional data source? Now I will share about 3 facts of MPD in Indonesia. There are 355 million active telephone numbers. It is quite huge number compared with the inhabitant of Indonesia. This fact shows to us that for every 10 people, there are 13 active phone numbers. And the second fact, based on the regulation issued by the Ministry of Communication and Information, all phone numbers have to register based on single identification number as in the personal ID card. And the last fact, based on Google Consumer Barometer, about 91% of adult population in Indonesia using mobile phone device, and about 60% using smartphone. These 3 facts make it possible to explore MPD. And how could we get the data? BPS obtains MPD data from the Telkomsel. Telkomsel is the mobile network operator with the biggest market share in Indonesia, with more than 140 million subscribers spread out in all over Indonesia. Mobile data for each subscriber is obtained from their activities using mobile phone in the form of call detail record, or CDR, and location-based service. MPD is then translated by MNO into the following data structure. The table here contains the subscriber number that has already been hashed, as you can see in the column 1. Time detail at the column 2 and 3, and the location at the last 3 columns. Before. From this table, based on the time of arrival and departure, we can calculate the duration of time travel, and also could predict the mode of transportation used by the subscriber. From the location in column 4, 5, and 6, we got information on spatial mobility of subscriber. To predict the mobility or movement carried out by each subscriber, we made the usual environment model of subscriber. The usual environment is the geographical boundary of the administrative area in which subscriber carried out their daily activities. Usual environment can be described into several categories such as home, work, secondary home, regular free time, tourism trip, and others. Home of subscribers can be identified by a phone number that is most exposed in a location at night, while determining the work is identified by a phone number that is most exposed in a location from morning to evening. And now I would like to share on how we do MPD data processing. The method that we use for MPD data processing called as sandboxing. The step taken as follows. BPS have an access to MNO database by using a token given by the MNO. However, the data is very limited, only for the process of data exploration and algorithm development. We could only access 5% data sample, not overall data. Then BPS provide the definition and flow concept used to define people as commuter, for example, or tourists. And MNO will build a script to implement it on the data and running the script. Finally, MNO will provide some table as requested by BPS for analysis. There are several validation steps conducted to ensure the quality assurance of the statistic produced by MPD. First, by checking the trip identification result. And we also involve volunteers that were equipped with a travel diary apps in their phone. Those two validations used to improve the methodology and develop the algorithm. By knowing more about MPD from my explanation before, we could understand what are the benefits of using MPD. For sure, the benefits of using MPD are in line with the characteristic of big data itself. There are a huge range of areas that can be beneficial from using MPD. I will not explain one by one. As the result, by using MPD, the following are examples of BPS initiative with MPD for official statistics. In 2016, we first initiated to predict the number of foreign tourists at cross-border ports. This method used as a complement to complete administrative data on international tourism data. Then in 2018, we enlarged the use of MPD to produce indicator for domestic visitor, event-based analysis for Asian Games and IMF annual meeting, and also start to produce commuting statistics. And last year, we have a good offer from the Ministry of Planning to use MPD as an alternative method for delineation of metropolitan area. I will only discuss more regarding the last two projects. Let's start with commuting statistics. Traditionally, commuter is a person who trips from home and back to home again on the same day regularly for work, school, or course activities. Here are some comparison results between using MPD and doing traditional survey. Regarding the cost, MPD is more cost-effective than traditional survey. The comparison is about 1 compared to 8. Regarding the time interval, MPD data can be obtained the up-to-date data, while the traditional survey is carried out approximately once every 4 years. Regarding the estimate level, MPD can produce up to the sub-district level, while for the traditional survey, only district level. The pictures show us a comparison from the result of the MPD data and the traditional survey. From this picture, we can see that the pattern of human movement based on MPD data is in line with the movement pattern of the survey result. This means that MPD can be used to analyze commuting statistics very well, with various advantages compared to traditional surveys. By using MPD, we also could identify in up-to-date manner regarding the impact of pandemic on the commuting activities. As an example, we try to calculate the commuting pattern in two metropolitan areas, which are Medan and Jakarta. We could see from the graph that since the COVID-19 pandemic hit Indonesia and all over the world, the percentage of commuters in both cities was declined and continue decline and slightly increased on June. Commuting flow from MPD can also be used as an alternative method for delineation the metropolitan area. We have opportunity from Ministry of Planning to do pilot project in 2019 at Cekungan, Bandung metropolitan area. In this project, we use MPD in producing indicator of commuter mobility between the central city and the surrounding cities at the sub-district level to determine metropolitan area. The metropolitan area determination implemented two thresholds. First, at least 1.5% of commuters traveling to the central city per population in that sub-district. And the second is at least 5% of commuters traveling to the central city of the respective sub-district to the total commuters in the district. Then the district that meet this threshold will be included as metropolitan area. On doing validation, the travel diary application, we call MELI MSA application, was used and more than 900 volunteers were recruited. For about 4 weeks, volunteers are also asked to confirm their location and activities they carried out. In this project, we implementing 3 scenarios in order to determine metropolitan area. This is the result of MPD for MSA project. This picture presents the metro area delineation. Limited time, I will not explain one. However, I will discuss the scenario 3 as an example. For the first threshold, not all sub-districts included as metropolitan area. Only 80 from 106 sub-districts, shown by the light and dark green at the picture 3. While for the second threshold, there are 78 sub-districts included as metropolitan area. The delineation method using MPD is considered quite good, indicated by the level of algorithm accuracy compared to MELI results that have been confirmed through ground check activities. For the next MPD project, we will develop some demographic indicator by using MPD. 2 of them are internal migration and transnationalism. The determination of internal migrant can be seen from the usual environment at home. We can assume that, for example, location A is home of a subscriber last year, and location B is home of subscriber this year. So internal migrant is a person who has a different location between this year and previous year. That's a simple way.
Hi, Eddie. Sorry, we have to start wrapping up.
Okay. And for transnationalism, we have already tried to calculate, and our college, Ibu Titi Kanti, present this result in one of the international conference in Korea. And the result, can you see here? Malaysia, Singapore, and Saudi Arabia are the 3 countries which are the biggest main destination of transnationalism originated from Indonesia. And this is my last slide. However, even though there are so many advantages using MPD, we are still facing some issues on the use of MPD for official statistics. The first issue is regarding the regulation. Up to now, we don't have any regulation that regulates the role of each related party. Because the data originating from big data can constitute individual data, the utilization may conflict with legal regulation. The security of data privacy become an important issue and needs to be convinced. Furthermore, since most of the big data, including MPD, is owned by private sector, sustainability of data needs to be considered so that the analysis using MPD can be continued in a long term. And to be able to produce official statistics, human resource to analyze the data obtained from big data are needed. They need to have knowledge in statistics and also meaningful insight in big data. The public also needs to be convinced about the data use, especially regarding personal data and the methodology used to generate statistical data. I think that's all my presentation. I beg your apologize for exceeding the time. And I will end up my presentation by saying thank you very much for your attention. I will give back the room to Tanja as moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elian. It was indeed a very interesting presentation. Some comments appreciating it in our comment box. I have we have one question for you, which we could maybe we'll skip that to later because we're running a little bit late already. But there's a question for you in the chat box. But let's move to our second presenter, and she's from Pulse Lab Jakarta. It's Radius Isarika, and she will be presenting on some of the really exciting projects that they have in Pulse Lab Jakarta. Over to you, Radius. And we can see your screen. That's wonderful. And it looks like your presentation is loading. Yeah, your presentation is up. Very good. I cannot hear you though. I think you're still on mute, Radius.
Yes.
Now we
can you hear
you. We can hear you. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. Okay, great. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm Raju of Jakarta. Today I'm going to talk about some of our projects on harnessing big data for official statistics. So, but before that, I would like to say a bit more about Pulse Lab Jakarta, what it is. It's an innovation lab. It employs a mixed method approach. On one side, it applies advanced data analytics for development and humanitarian purposes. And on the other side, it applies human-centered design. So the lab has three functions. One is to draft exploratory research. The second one is to facilitate partnership between different stakeholders. And the third one is to identify new data sources and their values for development. So this is our data journey. The lab was built or founded back in 2013. And then we only had access to social media as the big data source, especially Twitter. So for the initial 2 years, we only worked with Twitter data to try to derive possible insights for development and humanitarian actions. In 2015, we started to roll out projects on crowdsourcing, and in 2017, we started we finished our data partnership agreement with Digicel Pacific, where we are able to start working on projects with mobile data. And if you see at 2019, our data sources are growing. So now I'm going to talk about some of the projects that we think are relevant enough for official statistics. The first one is on human mobility, and the very first one is inferring commuting statistics in the Jakarta greater area with Twitter data. So previously, Pak Edi mentioned about commuting statistics with MPD. We started with social media because this is the first data set that we have access to. And if you look at the chart on the left-hand side, they are very identical. That's between the commuting statistics from the survey, and on the left side, and then on the right-hand side is the commuting statistics based on Twitter data. The second project is tracing rural-urban migration patterns in Indonesia with mobile phone data. But we actually don't have access to the raw data from the telco provider here in Indonesia. So our modality for this project is insight sharing. So we talk to the scientists and engineers from the telco provider about our objective and how to do that. So they executed the methodology and they come back to us with the semi-processed data. The third one is quantifying population exposure to air pollution in Bangkok with Grab mobility data. So we also have a partnership agreement with Grab, where then we join them to provide, in a project to provide feedback for Bangkok Transport Authority to improve the transportation system. So it's all about transportation, but we experiment a little bit with quantifying population exposure to air pollution due to mobility. On population movement, which is specific related to natural disaster, there are four projects, but consider to natural disasters. The first one is we trace population flow related to cyclone, one in Vanuatu and one in Samoa. And the second one is earthquake, mapping population displacement after earthquake in Palu. Again, we use site sharing here instead of a data sharing modality. And for PNG, we got access to the raw data basically. So we are able to process the raw data into the iterative map on the left-hand side. The third one is on socioeconomic indicators. There are two projects here that we think relevant to show. The first one is developing proxy indicators of education, household characteristics, and expenditure in Vanuatu. This is with mobile phone data. And the second one, mapping wealth distribution at high resolution in PNG. The method is a bit advanced here because we do the combination of telesurvey and mobile phone data, and the result or the map is shown on the left-hand side, where the wealth distribution is mapped at the LLG level, which is a bit higher than village, if I'm not mistaken. So those projects that I mentioned before, they are at the proof of stage concept and they stop there. So what I'm going to talk about now is where our projects that are adopted into the government system by combining conventional and non-conventional data. The first project is our recent work to identify potential hotspots for COVID-19 spread in West Java province in Indonesia through a combination of data from PODES, which is a village potential census. We combine it with a Facebook population density maps. This is on the left-hand side, you would see the interactive map at the village level, but we actually have some other data source layered at the district level as well. So this interactive map has been installed in the command center of West Java provincial government, and they also host the public version of it. The second project is a bit older, but still very strong example. This is Vampire, the vulnerability analysis and mapping platform for impact of regional events, where it combines the socioeconomic survey, the household survey on food security, and then on the back end, it models regularly the precipitation data and vegetation health index. And the objective is to identify priority areas on food insecurity. To the best of our knowledge, the dashboard was installed in the somewhere in the situation room of the government of Indonesia, and the other one is in Sri Lanka, while the public version is hosted by the WFP. So I would like to share some sources. The first one is a guide to data innovation for development. We use a lot this source when we have to introduce big data to government counterparts or development agencies who know nothing about big data projects. So let's say it's a Big Data 101. The second source that I would like to share is data privacy, ethics, and protection. So there is a guidance note provided by the UN Global Pulse on data privacy. And the third one is a blog, how to scale up big data projects, which is an accumulated experiences from the 3 labs in Jakarta, New York, and Kampala. This is my last slide. I would like to talk a little bit about data partnerships, because big data projects will always require data partnerships. And the reason is that most of the big data sources are located in the private sector. So we define, based on our experience, 3 modalities for data sharing or insight sharing. So we move from a data philanthropy to shared value partnerships. We need to be able to identify partners who share the same value as us to harness big data for a greater social impact, for instance. The second one is a shared understanding of the proposition and the benefits for all parties. And the third one is strategic alignment. So this is the opposite of a transactional alignment, where it stops after one-time exchange data, for instance. But strategic alignment, we want to have a more sustainable data sharing and insight sharing with those partners. So I think that concludes my presentation for today. Refer to you, Tanya. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting, and I really appreciated how, you know, I think it was your very first, your second slide where you showed how you just started with social media data, and then you've been expanding the data sources you've tried to work with. So there's obviously a lot happening, and it's moving to explore more and more different methods and sources. I also really like that you are increasingly trying to combine data sources. That's really interesting, and I think a lot of people will be following your lead on this and trying to understand more what you're doing. We haven't had any specific questions to you now, but I'm sure we'll receive some. People just need to digest a little bit. And also thank you very much for guiding people towards additional resources. I think that'll be very useful for our audience. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And also thank you for keeping to time. It makes my life easier. And we will go to our last presentation now. And this is Linus Benson from joining us from Flowminder Foundation. And I have to say a special thank you to Linus because he's joining us very early morning. So I really appreciate you being here, and we look forward to hearing more about your work. Over to you.
Thank you very much.
And we can hear you great, and your presentation is also coming up.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I am awake. Son is somewhere here. I hope he won't wake up, but we'll see. Let's see. Do you see my screen now?
We see your screen, and it's in presentation mode, so this is perfect. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks for the invitation. So yeah, my name is Linus Benson. I'm the executive director of Flowminder, and we're a non-profit organization. We're working on improving data for decision making and working often with governments to improve their capacity, also providing insights and tools to facilitate this type of work. And the focus is really on improved population data with a even stronger focus on mobility data. And now we've heard a lot from Eddie and Rajush here on the use of this type of data, but so taking a step backwards, I think we can. It's really about, we've really seen a very big increase and increase in the use of new data sources, but also in the quality of the data sources, on the characteristics of populations, the distributions of populations, and mobility of populations in the past decade. And some of this comes from the use of new types of data. We heard about the mobile phone data, and here is to the left there, you see data from the mobility patterns in Bangladesh from a project we made there with Dhaka there in the middle. We also have new methods to analyze this data, and importantly, increased processing power for automatic pattern recognition of satellite imagery. So we can see a lot more things in the satellite imagery than what was possible before. And really the common approach that we've seen here in the presentations, and that is what I think should be used, is to integrate the traditional survey and census-based statistics with these new data sources. So it's not a replacement, but an improvement and refinement of traditional types of statistics. So for me, this started a decade ago in the earthquake in Haiti, where I managed to create a collaboration with Digicel, the largest mobile phone operator in Haiti, and managed to get, at this time it had never been used, mobile phone data in a crisis situation where you have this very, very strong need of understanding changes in mobility. Now I have a very strange noise. Someone can mute there. Yeah, great. And so I managed to get this collaboration going with colleagues, where we could, during the first year after the earthquake in Haiti, follow the movements that took place away from the earthquake area where the supplies came in, and then gradually move movements back. And during the first years, we focused a lot on these type of operational projects and doing a lot of research on how to use this data and the techniques to use it. And then gradually we've been, especially in the last 5 years, we've been focusing much more on strengthening the capacity, supporting governments and other organizations in using this type of statistics. And here's just an example from your region, where we worked in Nepal with Ncell, the biggest mobile phone operator in Nepal, where after the earthquake here we supported, and you could see the movements from the Kathmandu Valley out to different parts of the country. So this is we also have like really excellent examples from Eddie and Rajush on the mobility of populations, and then another aspect is the characteristics and improving the characteristics of populations. And here we have again from Nepal, in using traditional sort of, for example, DHS data, we can see a variation in a particular characteristic in a country. So here it's female literacy. So we see this variation, but it's quite rough, right? And we really would like to improve the resolution of the data, the spatial resolution. And for the most part now, surveys take GPS positions of where the survey has been done. So here you see the points for the DHS survey, and the color here denotes the proportion of the population, of the female population, being literate in these points, but obviously with a very big uncertainty. And we know a lot of things from space. We know the slope of the terrain, the vegetation, the number of houses. There's so many things we know. And it turns out that for many social characteristics, there's a strong correlation between what we see from space and the proportion of the population having the characteristic. And we can use that statistical correlation to estimate how it is outside areas where the survey has been done, to reach these kind of very high resolution maps. And we can also know the uncertainty in each point by developing the statistical model on part of the data and testing it on another. So, and then obviously the uncertainty is very big in very small areas, but then you can aggregate this up to the administrative area that you want. So this is a very nice, I think, approach that will come more strongly, but requires a lot of statistical knowledge. A very similar approach you can take with better understanding the distribution of populations. So this is an example from Afghanistan, where we worked with the Afghanistan government in a very close partnership with the World Pop Group at the University of Southampton, who's done a lot of the modeling here, and UNFPA. And here there hasn't been a survey, a census in Afghanistan since 1979, and there's been in some areas they managed to make a census, and you see those big areas. You see the enumeration areas has the color of the number of people in them, and then we randomly assigned other enumeration areas where the statistical agency enumerated the population. It's these very, very small points spread out throughout the country. And by using the same approach, by finding the statistical correlations between the things we see in space to the number of people on the ground in these areas, we can make this model of how the population is distributed. And we can also then, by having an understanding from satellite data of the locations of all the buildings in a country, we can then place people and have a much more down at the pixel level at about 100 times 100 meter level. We can estimate the number of people. So this is very nice modeling work done by the World Pop group, and then presented this work to President Ghani, and much of this data is also now used in operational work in Afghanistan. Obviously, population data is very sensitive, and this is not approved as the Afghanistan official statistics, although it's used for many applications. So reaching towards the end here, I wanted to give you some pointers to more resources. We're very happy to support when it comes to using new data sources for population data. One important resource is the open source software that we produce that is free to use, that operators can install behind their firewall, and which allows for the operator to set very secure and precise access control to their data, and also then allows a party from the outside under those access control conditions to process and analyze this data for statistical purposes. Just finishing up, as I mentioned from the beginning, really we should see new data sources as complements and not replacement of traditional statistics. We should integrate the two in statistical models, and please reach out for support, and I'm very happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linus. That was also a very interesting presentation. I must say we've had some very good presenters today, and I really appreciated how you were highlighting, the benefits of being able to disaggregate data much more, but also how these alternative sources are particularly helpful in very difficult circumstances. I mean, your example from Haiti is extremely interesting and groundbreaking, really, and also, of course, Afghanistan example. So thank you so much for sharing. And we've had quite a lot of questions in the chat box, and then Eddie has been very active in responding to many of the ones that were directed at him. But some of the more general questions that I think are coming up in the chat box, and also some of the ones we received before with the registration, was really about access to data. So I think my first questions to all of our three speakers would be if you have any particular advice on how you start getting access to some of these data sources. And I'm going to start off with you, Eddie, if that is okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Tanja. Regarding about the data access, for sure, BPS, as a user of the APD data, have a contract with the MNO. So the contract is every year, and we have to renew the contract every year. That's a problem of administrative, actually. And beside the contract, we also have a MOU with the Telkomsel as a MNO. But maybe this year we will also include some other MNO, because in Indonesia, at least there are 4 biggest mobile operator in Indonesia. So the Ministry of Planning will try to manage the connection with the MNO. But again, we need a regulation, Tanja. We need a regulation for the government to ensure that we can access the data continuity. The continuity of the data itself become the most issue now. So because if we have no contract with the MNO, we will not have the data. That's the concern of our issue now.
Thank you so much, Eddie. I think that's very helpful for everyone. Rajus, I don't know if you would respond to this question as well.
Yeah. Sure. I think I've also noticed several questions like from Sebastian Boll. So it's always a question about data access when I try to present the results here or everywhere. Basically, we're not always be successful. Basically, right? If you see that we have partnership with Digicel in Pacific, but not with telco provider in Indonesia. With Digicel, it's a long process. We have people specialized on partnership with private sector. So that's all that I could say so far. So it doesn't always work, but when it works, it's worth it. But when it doesn't work, then we move into another modality, which is insight sharing. And usually private company is okay. They're welcome with the insight sharing. That's all.
Thank you so much. I think it's very nice to hear your actual practical experiences and what you're doing. And I think that what I'm hearing from you is really, well, you might not get everything you want, but if you keep trying, eventually you will get some things that you can use. So that's very practical advice here.
That's possible.
Okay, and Linus, would you like to respond to this question as well?
Sure. It's always, yeah, it's a tricky issue. It's really about listening to the MNO, the operator, what they are interested in. It needs to align with their strategy. Different operators are trying to promote different things. Sometimes corporate social responsibility is an important thing. Sometimes it's commercial profit that they're interested in. There can be different things, and then of course you need you need to have covered all the different domains that they are concerned about. So you need a good technical solution. You need to have the legal contracts and templates and in place, and then that strategic alignment. So it's not a simple solution, but and it's often a long process. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think other questions that we received in advance, and I think that we're also kind of seeing reflected a little bit in the chat questions. There's so many chat questions, we will not be able to cover all of them, but another kind of theme around the questions is about data quality and how do we ensure that the statistics we produce are of high quality when we no longer have the usual metrics that we as statisticians are so used to working with. And I think this also goes towards the question of, well, how do we move from all of these great and interesting experiments into actually seeing these new data sources integrated into official statistics? And Linus, you also really highlight this in your presentation as well. So I think all of you will have things to say on this topic. So I will give to Eddie again first. You are muted, Eddie. We can't hear you.
Yep. Thank you, Tanya, for the question. For sure, the data accuracy will be our concern in order to produce the MPD as an official statistic. As I said before, we do some steps in validation the data. The first is by trip identification. And we also recruit the volunteers that equipped with the application that we call mainly MSR application. So the volunteer will do annotation by their mobile phone. And another step to do the validation is we do ground check to the volunteer. So last year we have more than 900 volunteers when we do project in the Cekungan Bandung, and they have to report their daily activities to the system that inject to the mobile phone that they have. So we have so many steps to do the validation. And this step used to improve the algorithm. So we have to develop algorithm and have to improve algorithm by time. So it is a really live project in order to ensure that our data, our statistic that we produce by MPD is quite accurate. Maybe that's all my question, Tanja.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. I mean, yeah, I think your point about continuously improving the algorithms and improvements over time are really important. We all know, I don't think many of us have the final solutions to anything right now. So it's a very good point you have there. Rajus, do you want to respond to this question as well?
Yeah, probably a little bit. I think we also there is an echo. So okay. So we also try to produce the results with the quality data, and that starts from even the pre-processing, right? So there are a lot of extensive pre-processing. The big digital data is different from the traditional data. You work hard on the design for the traditional data, but not really on the pre-processing. For big data, it's a lots of work on pre-processing to make sure that the quality of the data is on the top level. And on the top of that, we also have to do the validation, external validation when it is possible. One of the example is our project with COVID-19 in West Java, where we combine PODIS data, which is the administrative data, so we don't have to validate anymore, but we combine it with the Facebook population density map. And then there is always a question of validation from the government. When we use this data, how about the validation? So we validate with another official statistics, in this case, population density at the district level from a socioeconomic survey. So that's, I think, one way to validate the data, so to ensure that the data is at the good quality. Facebook population density map was validated in African countries, some of African countries, but not in Indonesia. So if we want to use that, we need to validate by our own. So, and the other example, for instance, our project with a graph data on population, exposure to population on the air pollution. So we need to find the ground truth data, in this case, the sensor data, which is available in Bangkok. So in many cases, we could not find the external data, especially if we work in the country where the statistics or the data infrastructure or the system is not really improved. So there is only very outdated external data to use, and that's just not possible to do that. So I think that's best from our experience.
Thank you so much. And I think that's a perfect bridge to Linus, who has experience in some very difficult, working in very difficult data systems. So Linus, do you want to respond to this question?
Thanks. Yeah, I agree with everything what has been said, and I think often these new data sources is seen as a replacement. People are saying no, they're not a replacement, but actually when it comes to budgets and actual planning, they're often done as replacement. So I don't think that should be done. I think you should implement population-based surveys at the same time as you do mobile phone work. The population-based surveys, they don't need to be as big if you have them standalone, but that is what you should plan for in your budgets, and that's seldom done. And I would like to see that continuously, because the mobile data, the behavior of people using mobile phones is changing. The subscriber numbers, subscriber characteristics with different operators are changing over time, and I do think we need that kind of validation. When we've done this a long time, maybe we can then relax the need for population-based surveys at the same time, but I would like to see that for quite substantial time.
Thank you so much, Linus. And I mean, we've had quite a lot of these stats cafes, and I think this is the one where I personally have seen most questions. So it's obviously a huge interest in this area. Yes?
May I have some additional information?
Of course, Eddie.
Regarding, the accurate, I want to add some more information regarding the accuracy rate of determining home is 70%. Yeah, while for work is 57% from the sub-district level. And the level of work accuracy is lower because there are some of the volunteers who have mobile jobs, such as motorbike taxi drivers or couriers, so that their workplace are not fixed. That's why the accuracy is lower than home. Okay, thank you, Tanja.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. Yeah, I really apologize. We can't attend to all of these quite interesting questions that are coming in, but there's simply too many, and we are running a little bit low on time. But what I really appreciate about all of these presentations is that you're really you're very honest about the difficulties that you're facing, and also some of the shortcomings of your work. But you're also very optimistic, all of you. You know, you will see a future in this area and a way ahead. And I really like some of the very practical suggestions, and, you know, keep trying, setting up these partnerships and moving ahead, and we will improve this work over time. So I think I will head back to Gemma, give the word back to Gemma, who is, I think, been following this very interested, if I know her correctly. So over to you, Gemma.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tanya, and thank you very much, Eddie, Rajesh, and Linus, and actually all of the people who are also in the chat box who are sharing information in with you. Yeah, this topic of big data, we've recently held the 6th International Conference on Big Data, hosted by Statistics Korea, COSTAT, and the closing speaker from the United Kingdom, he reminded us at all, at the end of the day, our job is actually to produce official statistics using the best possible data source and best possible methods that we have at our disposal. And fundamental principle of official statistics, number one, is to basically produce official statistics that meet a practical utility, have a practical use. And what we've heard today is the production of statistics by official statistics agencies, or with official statistics agencies in the case of Linus, that have met a practical utility. They've been available for migration, for internal mobility, for a country like Afghanistan, who has not been able to estimate its population at small geographic levels since 1979 because of, for whatever reason, we haven't been able to run a census there, or in Haiti where there's been an actual disaster. So I'm just extremely encouraged by the level of activity of agencies like BPS Indonesia, Flowminder, Pulse Lab Jakarta, and many others who are looking for practical ways to compile official statistics that meet our quality standards, that meet the needs of our users, and basically meet all of the sort of challenges that we're up to in the official statistics community. So I've been inspired. I'm inspired by all of the presentations today. The presentations from a couple of weeks ago about compiling environment statistics, and in a few weeks' time we're going to be hearing about compiling economic statistics. But at the end of the day, our job primarily is to inform our nations, to inform our regions about what's the situation. And I think population estimates, mobility estimates, migration estimates are key official statistics that are extremely valuable to our governments. So thank you very much, Eddie, Linus and Rajesh, and to my team. It's been an absolute really honour to be with you today, and please do join us again, and thank all of our speakers and chat box for your participation. Thank you very much.